Episode 3 of How Clementina Gave Up on Men, Not Until Her Best Friend Sarge Shocked Her. If you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, let me give you a quick previously on Storytime with Kitara. There was a girl called Clementina whose heart was broken by her boyfriend, and she thought perhaps if I date a fellow woman, things would be different and they would work out. So much went on, not until she told her best friend Sarge about it, and the two ended up becoming a thing. Sarge left Clementina's home as the visit had come to an end. Clementina was so happy to have Sarge in her life, and she felt this sense of euphoria that she had never felt before. Not only did she think she found someone who loved her, but she thought, I have finally found someone who genuinely cares about me, someone who understands me in a very different way, someone who accepts my traumas and doesn't judge me, someone who fully understands me. Clementina had made her soulmate. All she was looking forward to is living this life with Sarge. Not until Sarge broke the bad news to Clementina and actually informed her that she had actually gotten an offer for a job she had applied for abroad, but she was actually going to be on a different continent as Clementina. Clementina was one who would love someone genuinely, but the badness about her is that she would love someone too deeply, which was so dangerous for a human being. And so you would imagine how Clementina felt. She felt like the world was coming to an end because here's something good that you found and now you're losing it. Clementina is one who would think ahead and not in the moment. And so she had already thought about the future and she thought to herself, this is not going to work out. Whereas Sarge is the kind of person who lived in the moment. Hence you would call Clementina an overthinker while Sarge is a happy soul, right? Clementina's personality was very expressive, therefore she informed Sarge about her thoughts. Sarge told Clementina that she was overthinking and the relationship wasn't going to come to an end in spite of them being on different continents. They would still continue dating. She told Clementina she was going to start working on bringing Clementina to where she was going because after all, homosexuality there was something that was normal, whereas back there in Africa, it's something that was a taboo. Clementina got so reassured and she trusted that they could make it work. Sarge managed to relocate and this is when everything went terribly bad. The communication between them got worse, but it wasn't like in the beginning when they were friends it was any better. Clementina started to get frustrated at first because she thought to herself, if someone really cares about me, they would make the time for me just like I am making time for them because it's not like I got nothing to do. But when Sarge made it known to Clementina how busy her schedules were and that actually she had to do some part-time work to keep living in that country or in that continent, Clementina understood. And because of this, she would always wait for Sarge to reach out to her. The communication didn't get any better in spite of Clementina's complaints, and Clementina started to think to herself, perhaps Sarge has grown out of this relationship. Perhaps Sarge was genuinely busy, but Clementina thought to herself, I would make time for someone that I genuinely care for. The terrible communication is what brought arguments between Clementina and Sarge and a lot of misunderstandings. Perhaps Sarge is starting to grow out of this relationship and she doesn't want to be with me anymore, be it the friend that I was before or whatever this thing is. Treat others as they treat you, said Clementina to herself, and she decided to behave exactly as Sarge was behaving towards her and she kept her distance. Days and days passed, sometimes even months, and Sarge would never reach out to Clementina unless if Clementina did, which showed Clementina to say Sarge was never interested anymore, and Clementina decided to move on with her life. Clementina started to see other people, men of course, but Clementina was already too deep in love with Sarge. But sometimes she would explode as she was deeply in love with Sarge and she would try to work out the relationship that they had, but Sarge would always respond indifferently. Sometimes she would even confess her love to Sarge, but Sarge would always respond indifferently. And at some point, Sarge responded to say she misses her too, but not in the way that she misses her. She misses her as a friend. Ever heard the song by Chris Brown? What the F am I supposed to do in the meantime? Then she told me figure it out. Is what Clementina was going through at this point. Clementina had to swallow this bitter pill at this point as she had no choice. Unrequited love. Is it? Clementina recorded lyrics to one of her favorite Future tracks. I hear she keep promises and never change on you. At this point, Clementina was thinking, turn off the lights. I'm not looking for her anymore because what do you mean? Why did you come to me if you had no intentions of still being with me? And Clementina noticed Sarge always posting this man on her status and saying all the lovey-dovey stuff. She decides to confront Sarge, but Sarge would always deny it. At this point, everything was going sour. There were always misunderstandings, arguments, especially for Clementina as she was so angry and was not understanding what was going on. She was so frustrated. And literally, she was just going through another heartbreak. It was so weird how Clementina was so deeply in love with Sarge. What have you picked from this story? Why do you think Clementina was so deeply in love with Sarge? Do you think Clementina made the worst mistake of her life that taught her a lesson? Do you think Clementina is one type of a person who falls deeply in love with people too quickly? And if so, is that such a bad thing to do? Or do you think everything came crumbling down because Sarge was only in it for the moment? Drop your comments. What do you think about this story?